In light of the new version of the Countach being released, I thought I'd make an episode on the history of this iconic vehicle. A vehicle that millions of men and boys had plastered all over their walls in the 70s and 80s. This Lamborghini was the ultimate fantasy car because nothing like it had ever been released. Not even Ferrari could compete with how awesome this thing was. But as always, before we get into this, make sure you click on that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any new video that I might release. Let's get into this. The story starts in 1964 when Enzo Ferrari had already established himself in the automotive world through racing. It was also during this time that Ferruccio Lamborghini owned a successful tractor manufacturing company. At the time, Ferruccio Lamborghini owned a Ferrari, but he was unhappy with how temperamental it was. So he took it to Enzo Ferrari and complained about it. Ferrari basically shrugged it off and the two got into an argument. It was during this argument that Ferruccio told Enzo that he could make better cars. Ferrari then responded by saying, "You stick to building tractors and I'll stick to making world-class sports cars." Now this part is a bit funny. This angered Ferruccio so much that he opened up his own car manufacturing company in northern Italy, which was close to Ferrari's headquarters, just because he could. He also took the country's best auto talent to compete with Ferrari. To everyone's surprise, they immediately became Ferrari's main road rival when they released the Lamborghini Miura in 1967. Now I say road rival because on the racetrack, Ferrari competed with Ford. And just like Maserati, Lamborghini didn't really care about racing their cars. Yes, Maserati used to race their vehicles, but it was around this time that they moved away from it, partly because it was becoming too expensive. The Miura was probably the most exciting Italian sports car of its time, and it even topped Ferrari. So Lamborghini knew that they had to come up with something spectacular to compete with that one. So in 1971, they released an experimental version of the Countach at the Geneva Auto Show. The name Countach is an Italian slang word of amazement or awe, like wow, and was given to the car after a Lamborghini employee expressed his emotions with the word when he saw the vehicle for the first time, and the name stuck from there. This experimental version was astonishing. Its ultra-modern fighter jet style design and 4-liter mid-engine V12 pushing out 375 horsepower and racking up a neat 280 kilometers an hour stole the show. Nobody had seen anything like this two-seater coupe from the future with scissor doors, which was a brand new, never before seen innovation at the time. Designed by Marcello Gandini, the car didn't follow the conventional rules of car design and they were all hand-built. Before the vehicle could be released to the public, they had to make some changes, so it was finally released in 1973 and it was called the LP400. But by this time, everybody knew it as the Countach. Ferruccio Lamborghini sold the company to George Henry Rossetti and René Lehmer and retired in 1974, just before the Countach went on sale in that same year.
Time to put away the tractor and let the other thrills begin.
The engine was installed sideways and in a multi-tubular frame with a radiator on each side. It had perfectly balanced weight distribution with its ultra-wide body. The bad thing about it though was that it had horrible rear view visibility. You had to open the door and kind of lean out over your shoulder to actually see what was going on behind you. It also had heavy steering and a cramped interior, but none of this mattered due to its spectacular look, its speed, its handling, braking and stability. It was also very practical and reliable for a car of its class. Initially, Lamborghini was only going to make 112 cars because they also only wanted to give it to advanced drivers that could prove their worth on the road. Lamborghini also considered leaving out air conditioning so that most of the civilized world would not want to buy one. But eventually air conditioning and even leather seats became a standard in the vehicle. Over the years, the vehicle was continually improved until 1978 when the LP400S was released. It had modified suspension, Pirelli tires on wider wheels, fender flares and a front spoiler. It also had the option of a large rear wing, which made it look more like a race car and gave it more stability. In 1982, they increased the size of the engine to 4.75 liters for the LP5000S model, but because of strict emission standards, the horsepower stayed at 375 horsepower. Lamborghini wanted something stronger though, so they unveiled the 5000 Quattrovalvole model in early 1985 with a 5.2-liter V12 that pushed out 420 horsepower. The legendary Lamborghini Countach was discontinued with the introduction of the Diablo in 1990. But just when we thought the Countach was forever dead, Lamborghini dropped a bombshell on us in July of 2021 with their ultra-modern interpretation of the Countach. They say they will only make 112 of these models, which goes for $2 million, and all 112 are already sold. Lamborghini produced the new Countach in a similar design and layout as the old one, but the major difference is that the new version is an electric hybrid with a supercapacitor attached to the gearbox. That concludes this episode of Decade by Decade. I hope you enjoyed it. See you at the next one.